Hello, dear friends. I hope you had a great week. Still finding moments to offer yourself some peace, some calm, and time for reflection and rest, even if that meant switching your attention and becoming very present and aware with the life around you, even as you were moving through it and continuing your day. It's so easy to do that when you live in a beautiful place, and every time you step outside you smell flowers and see birds flying ahead and hopping around in little puddles. So using every moment, even if we're walking from the front door to our car on the way to a task or an errand, that we use that walk to look at the budding trees and feel the wind and feel the earth beneath our feet. So finding that connection even through movement. And I know I enjoyed that this week, and I hope you found some of those moments as well. And what's been present for me this week, and what I hear from my family and friends and clients, is this a feeling of loss and uncertainty with losing kind of our normal activities. A lot of us have trips that have been canceled. We have a lot of festivals we like to go to that have been canceled, or sporting events. Our favorite restaurants aren't the same. Maybe they're not open yet. And feeling that loss in the sadness in losing some of these things that we really enjoy doing and that we feel bring us a lot of happiness, and connecting with new forms of happiness. So seeing that happiness is still and always possible, as 90% of our happiness comes from our kind of perspective on the world rather than what's actually in the world. And so developing ways to cultivate that happiness within us and find it in new and different sources. And I have just been reading Viktor Frankl's book, what's it called? The Unheard Cry for Meaning. And it is a fantastic book, as Viktor Frankl spent 3 years in the death camps of the Holocaust, so Auschwitz and one other, and his experience of how you survive times of suffering. And that in most people who were able to survive and who survived kind of that mental anguish and difficulty were the ones who found meaning or purpose for the future or for life in general. And also those who use a difficult experience as an opportunity for growth, growing oneself and transcendence of self, so that we find meaning in the other, in love of the other or love of the world, and that we find that our source or how we generate happiness actually transitions to being more of meaning-based versus what am I receiving-based. And so that in this transition of, yes, allow yourself to feel that sadness and some loss in what's happening and the changes in the world, but seeing that coming out of that and surviving it with some happiness and with room for growth is self-generated, comes from your own mental state and the way that you're seeing the world. And that you can look around you and find sources of happiness all the time, always, that they're always present within you and around you. And that, as Viktor Frankl pointed out, that even if they're not, so even if your situation is really dire and your needs aren't met, that there's a switch that can happen, and that in fact it doesn't depend on your needs being met anymore, but is a separate axis of experience in life, one that depends on either falling into despair or moving into transformation and fulfillment. And so that fulfillment coming from having meaning and purpose in life, and that sometimes that's even what we can offer back, which is a great example of that was Tuesdays with Maury, where Maury has Lou Gehrig's disease and he loved dancing and participating in life and being a teacher, university teacher, and as his sickness took over and he lost his ability to dance, he lost his ability to teach at the university, he was still finding great meaning and purpose in life, and in fact was living it still to its fullest. And his explanation on why he could do that is that he now found meaning in loving others and in teaching. So he was still offering wisdom to the world through his illness in even a greater, more meaningful way. So he was finding more meaning through his suffering. And through experiencing suffering, he was developing compassion to then be able to share with others and grow compassion for the suffering of others. And so in these experiences of, yes, you're losing some of these activities that made you happy, but are you losing happiness? No, absolutely not. And that you have the ability to find happiness and cultivate it in anything and everything that's around you. And certainly in finding some meaning so that you continue to contribute towards this world and towards having a purpose and cultivating what you want to see in the world around you and offering that and having kind of meaning in the future of things and how can we move towards that and grow from this experience to create something beautiful in the future, like the mud and the lotus. That the lotus is this beautiful, wonderful flower that grows in the mud. And so without our mud, without our suffering, that we cannot grow the flower. So I offer you in this time an invitation to begin to be with your sadness, be with some of the mud, but in a way that turns it into that luscious, yummy compost that enables you to grow these beautiful flowers. And being able to connect with and see those sources of happiness that you carry within you and that are always present in the world around you. And choosing to see, have gratitude for, and pour your energy into the things around you that are good and that are sources of happiness, so that instead of focusing on the loss and the suffering, we start to grow out of it and we start to be with our flowers and transform into our flowers from this kind of mud and muck. And this way we help this happiness cultivate in the world around us, and that this is what's growing instead of the mud and suffering. So happy flower growing this week. I hope you can identify those lovely sources of happiness within and around you. I hope to see all your smiling faces soon. Bye.